Hi, Maud. This is Ray Bone with my final lobbyist report. I hope for the regular and special session. Although I add the I hope because we just found out today that the Senate, while the House did adjourn sine die, the Senate doesn't plan on adjourning the special session for probably another few weeks, and maybe as long as a month. They evidently would like to work on some confirmations, some take a look at some of the governor's department heads and confirm them or not confirm them, and maybe some other appointments as well. So anyway, it looks like we'll continue to monitor things at this end in St. Paul to make sure everything is going all right and nobody's getting hurt up here. So anyway, with that, what I'd like to do is just spend a few minutes going over what came out of the end of this special session. And if you do want to look at some of the legislation, you can go on the internet and go to the bring up the special session and just look at the chapters. Look for the chapters, and the chapters are basically the individual areas that where things were passed. Like the environment has its own chapter. I think that's chapter 6. Legacy is chapter number 1. So those are the final um, bills that passed. Uh, Unfortunately, not all of them have the summaries or summaries as complete as they usually are. But anyway, it uh, I think we had ended up having an okay session considering the fact that that we couldn't be around up there watching exactly what was going on. While they did say that the Capitol opened up, they took the fence down, the Capitol opened up for the special session. That's really not the whole story. In fact, what happened was that they did open up the first floor of the Capitol, but the second floor where all the business is done was not open, or the third. So as a result, and then not only that, the state office building where they have their offices, as well as the Senate office building where the senators have their offices, they were not open either. You could not access them without a special pass of some kind. But so as a result, it, 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 it was hard to find a lot of transparency, and there were some pretty interesting things done um, in the name of COVID this session. So, um, what I'd like to do is start off with the general Senate File 20, which was the final Environment and Natural Resources Omnibus Bill. And in terms of some policy, I think some things that you may be interested in is that the SWCD supervisor compensation went to $125. So now their compensation finally got bumped up to match ours, which I think we've had now for 2 or 3 years. They've established a water quality and storage program. We had a lot of discussion about that. They put $1 million in each year and gave it to Bowser. Um, we frankly were concerned that we didn't understand why they were establishing a water storage program when in fact um, we all have water storage in our plans. Is all we need is just more money. We don't need another program, and unfortunately, that's what we got is another program and a chance for more bureaucracy. But hopefully we don't won't have much of that. But I'm not real hopeful. The But there's $1 million in each year for that. Lower Minnesota River, they got 240,000 each year to help them with their dredging responsibilities. Um, there, there was, I think, a really good piece of legislation passed that prohibited bulk transfer of water. As you know, there was someone who was trying to ship water from Dakota County, groundwater, to out west, and that actually is going to be more and more of an issue. Um, I think as every year goes by, as it gets drier and drier out west. I know when I was working with Governor Perpich, one of the things that he did when people were talking about moving water from the Great Lakes um, to the western states, he has he got the Great Lakes states together and developed that compact to have more authority to stop that kind of activity, because obviously we all know that you drop those lake uh, um, levels just a few inches can make a dramatic difference in the ecology of those lakes. So anyway, so I think that was a real good policy development. Uh, there was money put in from the general fund for the soil health cover crops for $675 each year. As I said, the water storage and treatment, that was $1 million each year. The dredge site, the Red River mediation, also got the $264,000 each year to support the mediation efforts in the valley. Um, in the Outdoor Heritage Fund, there were a number of watershed districts that actually did quite well. They collected quite a bit of money for their restoration projects, both aquatic and wildlife and around water. So anyway, I want to congratulate them. They did a great job. Rim Wetland, Bowser got $3 million for water wetland for Rim, and that obviously is helpful. Two Rivers Watershed District got money for their Klondike project, 1.9 million, almost $2 million. So that's obviously very helpful for them. Shell Rock actually got, I think, a couple of appropriations for their activities, restoration activities. Sauk River got the same. There, Sauk River is doing something with a number of different other entities, and then Buffalo Red did the same. They got some money based upon Lower Otter Tail River habitat restoration. So anyway, they all did a great job. We don't necessarily lobby for individual projects like that, so they have to do that pretty much on their own, and they obviously did a very good job. So congratulations to them. The Clean Water Fund, the Bowser received $68.5 million the first year from that fund and $73 million the second year. Performance-based grants received $13 million 500 just basically both years, and that's going to be extremely helpful for us. An accelerated implementation of the TMDLs and other activities of our plans with $16 million each year, and then a number of other amounts of money. I think the next biggest, obviously one of the biggest ones in the program too, is the $12 million each year to the soil and water conservation districts for their capacity funding. And as you know, that's something that's been in dispute up here. The House attempted to maneuver it so that people involved with title fees would have to pay a little bit more to pay for the soil and water conservation districts in their counties. The House really pushed that, but it didn't go anywhere, so they just went right back to the fund. Pollution Control Agency, they got $21 million each year, and they get $7 million each year, $7.5 million each year for the statewide surface water assessment programs, and then for their TMDLs or RAPs and the TMDLs, they got an additional $6.6 to $7 million each year, and $950,000 each year for groundwater assessment. What I'd also like to address for a couple of minutes here is what didn't pass, because I sometimes think that can be as important as what did. There was a study in the House finance bill to study the voluntary merger of watershed districts and SWCDs, and we did not believe that was ready for prime time. Frankly, none of the stakeholders were involved in it. I think some of the wording was actually going to drive people away from the one watershed, one plan. So as a result, we did not support that. We thought that that if the legislature wants to look at that, what we should do is we should have some stakeholder meetings and sit down and figure out. And frankly, the counties ought to be involved in that as well, because if we're going to start merging environmental activities relating to water, perhaps the counties ought to be involved in that as well. The draining, we introduced a bill dealing with the drainage project financing because of the problems that some watershed districts are having when they acquire, kind of automatically acquire ditches from the counties. And I think there's some issues there that we need to get clarified and figure out, because it's causing a lot of confusion, frankly, a lot of bad feelings between the county and some of the watershed districts. And I think we need to have a good discussion on that and try to figure that out, because it's really taking a lot of energy and a lot of time that we should be putting to better use, frankly. Watershed district eminent domain power, that was an issue that was authored by Representative Green and Senator Udke from Northwest Minnesota, and came about as a result of just some discussion about it. And no one, the watershed district, it's my understanding, wasn't even talking about doing it, but there was just some discussion, and as a result, people panicked and thought there was going to be eminent domain, and it just took off. But anyway, it didn't go anywhere. There was no hearing. So, but things change, and I think it's been my observation that since we clarified, the legislature clarified some of the eminent domain issues 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, when there was a big push in eminent domain to fix it up, that things have been going pretty well. And frankly, I'm unaware of watershed districts actually using it, or using it very little. So I don't know what the issue is there, but it was never heard, so there was never really much of a threat. But it is something that was talked about in hearings. The general levy increase, which was one of the mod provisions that folks wanted passed. We've been working on that now for the last 2 or 3 years or whatever. We met with both the chair of the tax committee, which is Representative Marquardt, who is obviously from Moorhead, and he's very, very familiar with watershed districts, being from the valley, and then Senator Weber from the Senate, who is from Rock County, Nobles County, I think represents that part of the very southwest portion of the state, and obviously there's a few watershed districts down there, and he's familiar with them. So as a result, when you have two legislators like that who are very familiar with what we do, and really both indicated to us that we're not interested in any kind of tax increases this year, we decided just to propose something which would have been a cost of living allowance, present value, the present 250, which would give in watershed districts another 100,000, which we thought was a pretty reasonable solution, at least for a while, to help some of the watershed districts, and especially in rural Minnesota, who need that kind of help for their programming, because the legislature seems to keep putting more and more opportunities to work on us. So anyway, but that never went anywhere either, never got any traction. So we're going to have to go back to the drawing board, and we're going to have to discuss that, I think, internally with MAUD, and try to figure out how we can get that done. And again, I think it's going to be a real load to carry it next year, because it's an election year again. And for the entire legislature, not just the House, it's the House and Senate both. And one of the problems is that these folks don't know what their new legislative district, Senate district is going to look like because right now we're in the middle of redistricting. So that makes them even more jittery and more nervous about doing anything they think people may not want. So, so anyway, I just wanted to bring that up to let you know that that's something we really, really need to focus on in terms of figuring out a better strategy or a strategy how we get at those legislators locally to give us some support that we need. And so you'll be hearing more from Emily and I on that issue as well. So with that, I just, again, we're going to be watching what's going on with the Senate and what they're up to. Hopefully we can, they'll go home sooner than later. And they're talking about perhaps another session, special session in September. To work on a bonding bill. Right now, I don't think there's any big push from the House side on the bonding bill, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But again, whenever the legislature comes back into town, you always have to watch what they're doing and what they're up to. So, and if that happens, we'll be watching that as well. So with that, I'm going to sign off and wish you all a happy 4th of July and a very happy summer. And I'm sure we'll be talking over the summer and fall. Thank you much.